We'll begin with a question from the audience. As to taking the canal over, where is the money going to come from, as well as the manpower and the extra equipment needed to maintain it, especially since the streets are in such deplorable conditions?
You want me to start?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, thank you.
Well, as everyone is aware, there's been a lot of discussion lately about the city possibly annexing in a portion of the canal from the locks down 2.5 miles down to Illinois Route 40. And if that were to ever happen, we would then also have to establish a lease agreement with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, just as was done with the Ardini boat ramp back when that project went through, and some portions of the land where our current hydroelectric plant sits. These are some of the most serious questions is, if we take it over, how would we fund the activities? Within the lease, a lot of things that I've had people ask me about are we going to have to be responsible for the locks, or are we going to have to be responsible? Some of the things can be identified in the lease agreement that the IDNR will continue to do. Things like maintenance, trail maintenance, and things like that, and now with the Emerald Ash Borer conditions that are coming around. Right now, the city does not have anything in the budget for finances for that. And that's why it's still in its exploratory stages. There may be grants and things like that. We are working on the bike path as part of the riverfront and other developments. So the bike path certainly would run down the canal because you can take it and go, I think, up to 95 to 100 miles south if you so choose to ride that far. So right now there is no specifics on the funding. There's been all kinds of estimates thrown around, and they're just that for now. But we've heard everything from $65,000 to $85,000. Some will say that's not enough. Others will say no, it isn't going to take that. One thing that will help immensely, if and when that ever proceeds to that, is getting volunteer groups to come in and help with those areas and help cut down those costs. But the city would have to take the property on insurance-wise. It would afford police protection to the canal, which is not there now because probably most people aren't aware that the canal is not in the city, and therefore when there's an issue down there, our Rock Falls police do not go down there unless they're asked to do so by the Whiteside County Sheriff's Department because they don't have a car in the area. It's not that we don't go down there or won't go down there, but it is currently at least not our jurisdiction.
Well, as far as the maintenance part of it, and we've had a number of meetings on this, the RRDA has been around for over 30 years. And they've maintained that and did what they've done with all volunteerism. They will continue to do that. It was one of the questions that we had when we first sat down with them and talked about it. One of the reasons that I looked at getting involved with that, if you recall a few years ago, they talked about shutting it down. And they shut down some other parks. We don't want to see that happen. That's one of the greatest assets we have in our community. As far as the 65 to 85,000, that's the first I've heard on that. As far as the ash trees, anything that's part of that main infrastructure will remain the cost of the RDNR. Our main cost would just be maintaining a mowing of the trail as far as the banks. They've also said that they would continue to do that. There's some grant monies out there that they're looking for the path. And as Bill said on the locks, that would be their responsibility. I was in office back when we did the Ardini boat launch and when we did the hydro. And I don't see that we've had any real problems with either one of those. We partnered with the Park District on the one, and I think this is a great asset. We're going to be having some surveys done to the university at no cost. The tourism group has picked up the cost on that. And there'll be some surveys coming shortly to everybody in the community. We've had one public community meeting. We had quite a few people here then. We had some folks from the bike club. Most of the aldermen were here. A lot of questions were asked. There was a chart up that basically said who's responsible for what. Again, I don't see this being a big cost to us. One of the things that we've just accomplished was we put some signs up. When people from out of town and they're going down that path, they have no idea where they're at. As soon as the weather breaks a little bit, we'll be putting up some signs like Dixon Avenue, 11th Street, so folks know where they're getting off and on. If you ever had the opportunity to go down to a little bit west of us there. They've done a great job in working with their canal. The difference between the two is that they don't have a park district, so that is their park. With ours, you know, we have a volunteerism. So, if there's any other questions from that, I'd be happy to answer them.
What is your vision for the downtown in 5 years, and how do you plan to implement it?
Well, we used to have a downtown revitalization committee that we had for over 20 years, and we won some hometown awards for that back in the day. There was a change in the way things were done. Once I was out of office years ago, that was kind of just dismantled, and the monies were dismantled. There was a grant there to help folks build things as far as refurbish their buildings, and then we had a number of banks that were involved with that at lower cost interest to help them get equipment. You know, the biggest problem with economic development is people want instant gratification. It doesn't happen that way. If you look at our riverfront, when I stood down there after being elected and folks told me I'll never live long enough to see that riverfront done, well, I'm glad to see you're still alive. And it was done in a very short period. The estimate from the first time that we had anyone look at that, they said at least 20 years. Well, you know, in 6 years we were pretty well done with that. In 7 years we would have been done except for a bridge project. And now you look and see what you have. Think back, folks, what was there before? And this is one of the biggest problems that we have in the city is the lack of memory along with vision. If you think back at what that was after we had the fire, and look at it today, I mean, I have not heard anyone think that was a bad idea, putting that area we have down there. And I want to thank the RFCDC because they've been very helpful with that too. It's one thing about being mayor, you know, you don't do everything yourself, but you know, leadership is where it comes in. And it was not an easy task. You know, I had a lot of naysayers on that. We had a lot of very interesting meetings over that. But at the end of the day, what you have, you don't have millions of dollars worth of debt on that. As a matter of fact, it's pretty well debt free. We've got grants of over $4 million that we did that down there with. As far as the rest of the downtown, going back to what I said on long vision, you now see some buildings going down, new buildings being built. We have some other ones down there. We've got the old Billy Sills buildings that are being refurbished right now. Look at the old Walgreens, same story there. That was our bankruptcy. A lot of times it's out of our control. And that bankruptcy just was settled and now we're ready to go. So again, I would be happy to meet with anyone afterward to discuss any of that.
To answer the question about downtown versus the riverfront without saying is going to be a wonderful project and it's going to be a humongous addition to the city of Rock Falls. But when you stand on the new road that we built down there and you turn around and look, as Dave alluded to, I think 20 years ago there was a downtown businessmen's association. One of the things that I've learned from most of the businesses when I've been out about campaigning is that they kind of seem that we forgot about them. You know, we're very fortunate. A lot of people will say bars and restaurants and small businesses don't really account to a whole lot. But I think even my opponent would say that in the big scheme of things, as far as retail tax and property taxes, we're very happy to have those small business opportunities in our town because they're what keep our community going. I think that a Main Street program, and a Main Street program is basically a program similar to, it sounds like 20 years ago, what the Downtown Businessmen Association was, an opportunity to go downtown, get the businessmen together to own the businesses as well as the property owners, many of which in vacant buildings aren't even here anymore, and get them involved and clean them up, paint them up, revitalize our downtown area. We have several empty buildings still besides the ones which currently have projects going on. I think some of those could be an excellent, at least one or two of them could be what we would refer to as an incubator. They've had this successful program over in Rock Island where you take some of these buildings, you refurbish them, and you give small business owners that can't afford to have a storefront of their own because of what it takes for utilities and rent and advertising and office space and everything else. and you subdivide a couple of those buildings and make it affordable to small businesses, retail outlets to get in there and see if they can make their business grow and expand it. Question that would come up is, how do you fund something like this? Well, there are grants and stuff through the Main Street program. It is a very competitive thing. Sterling did this. I think Prophetstown has done this. There are grants available, and you can do that, but I think that we have some funds available that we don't tap in too often around here, and those funds are tourism funds. Because tourism, we have tourism, and they're sitting on about $600,000 in reserves, and those funds are to be used for not only projects that bring pillows on heads, or heads on beds, however they refer to it as, but the state statutes also says that those can be used for infrastructure and economic development, which leads to tourism. So why not utilize some of that money for that purpose, to get a program like this going, work with our business people downtown, so that when the riverfront becomes the glorious place it is going to be, they can also turn around and look at the other parts of downtown, and those business people can benefit from it as well.
I have an audience question. How do you plan on paying for new road work without the city going into debt?
Geez, I'm surprised that question came up again. The roads in the city of Rock Falls are currently in a very hideous condition. But it's not just the city of Rock Falls. But in the city of Rock Falls, since that's what we're here talking about tonight, maintenance on roads are handled through basically two funds. The first is motor fuel tax, comes from the state. Currently, we get about $220, $230 a year motor fuel tax in from the state of Illinois. Half of that goes towards paying a motor fuel tax bond that was put into effect years ago to establish West 2nd Street. And we have several years left to pay on that. So half of our money that comes in for road repairs is cut in half because we are obligated to that bond, and it leaves not much for that. A few years back, Sterling, Dixon, and Rock Falls collectively all put a referendum out to you folks, the residents, and that was to implement a half-cent sales tax, with the half-cent sales tax money going to infrastructure improvements. So we do utilize the half-cent sales tax, but we also have been using the half-cent sales tax for other infrastructure projects. We allocate about $50,000 to $60,000 a year for sidewalks, and I think we've probably been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years, and we've made great headway in the sidewalks. The new ADA requirements, which have come along, which make sidewalk repairs and intersections where sidewalks terminate much more costly than before, become prohibitive in trying to advance and get a lot of sidewalk stuff done. It's not that nothing is being done, you just don't always see the end result. I don't feel that we have currently in place a road repair plan, and when we talk about planning, I think the road repair plan has to be developed, and we have to find a funding source from it. The last thing anybody sitting up here in Dave Rye's position tonight want to talk about is increasing taxes, is increasing things. But unless we come up with some revenue source, either through bonds or some other method, we are not going to be able to make a significant effect in our road repairs. They are already behind. And although we have a patcher, and the guy is doing an outstanding job with that patcher, most of the roads are now beyond the patching stage. So we have to find, that has to become a priority, because when people, businesses, tourists, travelers through our cities come in, and especially those people that might be a future business possibility, when they see our roads and how we deal with those things, those send a message to them coming in here and developing. So we have to come up with a plan for that, even if it means spending some money or going to other sources that we haven't before. It's that, or the roads will continue to deteriorate.
Same question, man.
Okay. Well, first, the Main Street program that Mr. Wescott's talking about.
Oh, no, the question for road work.
Oh, okay, road work. Well, then let's get to the roads. We have over 68 miles of road in the city of Rock Falls, and we do have a plan. We put in place 5 years ago. We've got a 5-year plan and an 8-year plan. And the funds that he was talking about that we've been paying for over 8 years, we still have over $900,000, which, as he said, takes all of our motor fuel tax pretty well. as far as the maintenance on those roads, we bought a machine, I believe it was 2 years ago, and what it does is more or less replace the road. If you look at most roads, it's the edges that are torn up, and he's absolutely right. Over the number of years, there was no maintenance done on roads, so they have deteriorated. And in our plan, we rate those roads at 1 through 5. Our superintendent goes out and we get reports on those. And it depends on the monies that you have. I mean, this year we're going to do Dixon Avenue, for example. That's a $300,000 project just for an overlay. When we did 3rd Street, we were talking close to $700,000, a total rebuild. So when we rate the roads, we look at what actually is being done with those roads. Because if it's just an oil and chip or a maintenance thing, or a rototill, or complete rebuild, it makes a lot of difference. And when we rate those roads, and as we have a committee, Mr. Reitzel's chairman of that, Public Works, and we go through this every year, and we rate the roads, what we're going to do, the engineering we're going to have, and so on. And Bill's right, you know, there's a lot of roads, but, you know, if you look in Sterling, you look in Chicago, anywhere you look, roads are there. When Ted Badillo first took over the job as superintendent, the one thing that he found is, in the water, nobody sees the lines. On the streets, everybody sees them. And so, the squeaky wheel, everybody sees what's wrong. So we're working on that, and we'll continue to work on that, and raising taxes isn't really what I'm ready to do. When we make these decisions, we spend the money we have. We keep some in reserve. A lot of times when you get bond issues, for example, we get the engineering done, and we did over $4 million in roads in my administration. Actually, we did 4.4, and over 3.3 million of that was grant money. So for that other million, you know, we stretched that money quite a bit. On Dixon Avenue, for example, that was a $700,000 project upon a Burke grant, and we paid 10% of that. So I think that's what needs to be done. You need to know where grants are at, how to get them, and that's the way we'll move forward.
I have a question and comment.